Today, we're looking at a black ink by Levenger, Raven Black. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around to the part you're most interested in. Or, if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. You could also follow me on Instagram, and if you like fountain pen ink reviews, I would invite you to subscribe. To make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into this Platinum 3776 with a broad nib, wrote with it for a day, and used it to take the notes for this video. This first writing sample is done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. Additional papers will show up later. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in bottle form, and to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is slightly lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 9 seconds to dry. Medium is about the same tone as the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 10 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show us no color variation, and there was none. Tomoe River. No bleeding, normal Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. Extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 12 seconds to dry. Medium is about the same tone as the extra fine, maybe a hair darker, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 14 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show no color variation, and there was none. And Rhodia. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. Extra fine is a little lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, 10 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade, 11 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show us no color variation, and there was none. I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And this is interesting because what I see is a lighter purple pushing its way up into a brown. And purple and brown can mix and make a very dark black. And that's what's happening here. They're using it to create depth in its color. Depth as in like fall into the black hole type black. Out of mixing it instead of just using a black dye, and that's what I'm seeing. Now the one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water, and that purple really did stay on the bottom. It's forming a line and not wanting to move, and you see a lot more of that brown showing through, and it's a very dark brown. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page and how hard it may be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I would not use this in a note-taking situation because there's an awful lot of feathering going on and really making it kind of blurry to read. I have just better inks to use than this if I'm going to go back and highlight. Now, water is lifting some of the ink, not a whole lot of it. It's really just moving some of the darkest parts around. Pen flush is starting to move a lot of the brown, but really leaving a lot of it still in the paper. It did take me pen flush, and it took me 2 or 3 times with pen flush to get this entirely out of my pen, which I was quite surprised with. But it did take a little bit more work. I did not need to get to the 1/3 bleach solution. Now 1/3 bleach, as you can see, is not completely removing it from the paper. That's because this ink is really bonding with the paper more than it's that much of a problem to deal with. Although I did have to flush it more than once with pen flush to get it entirely out of that Platinum 3776 converter. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. I'm also linking a video that shows how I do my testing and my calculations. Levenger's Raven Black has a viscosity of 1.82, making this a wet ink. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. I average those. Now, for the inks I've tested, I have found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with a realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Levenger's Raven Black has an average dry time of 11 seconds, making this a fast-drying ink, although nowhere near as fast as a lot of other Levenger inks. Instead of finding inks that look like Levenger Raven Black, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I wanted a nice red, and I chose Private Reserve's Vampire Red, and this is largely because of the brown aspect in the chromatography. The second writing sample is done on yellow Rhodia and white lines paper. Here we're looking at the yellow Rhodia paper, and I know you're saying this is a black ink. What kind of real tone change are we going to get on yellow paper from black ink? And the oddest thing is this. Look at the stub. It is slightly, it's like a tone lighter. Look at the scrubbies. The scrubbies are like a tone lighter. The same with the medium. It actually is just a little bit lighter of black. Now, it would still be seen as just a black and nobody would have a problem with it. But I found it very interesting, and it was the purple in the chromatography that made me wonder what would really happen with this ink on yellow paper. Last paper is white lines paper. Now, we do get some bleed through that occurs with the stub and the extra fine, not so much the medium, odd. It does have a bit of show through, but this paper is not really made for fountain pens. Their newer version is much nicer paper. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is a little bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 4 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 5 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we didn't get any, and that is all that I have for writing samples. So what do I think of Levenger's Raven Black? It does give the slightest amount of tone variation in different pens, although it pretty much gives a very dark black all the time. Looking at the swatch, it's the kind of black that you feel like you can fall into. It feels like it's creating a hole in front of you. This is a very nice black ink. So what nib and pen give the best writing experience with this ink? While I said there can be some slight tone variation, I don't think the pen you choose is really going to make that big of a difference. This is a dealer's choice. I do new ink reviews every single day, so if you're new here, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching.